Hello, it's me, Aaron, and today I want to talk about being overpowered and cheesing in the Souls games. But first, what even is cheesing? So, for me, the base definition that 100% is cheesing is, for example, shooting Manus with a crossbow from outside his arena, and killing the Dragon Tree Sentinel by sneaking up behind him and spamming Poison Cloud. In both of those situations, the boss is killed effortlessly by just not even triggering it. And even if the devs did put stealth and Poison Cloud in the game to be used, it was not meant to be used like this. Not meant to kill a boss without even triggering it. And so this is cheesing. There is no debate here. And now before we continue, of course all glitches and exploits and cheating is, well, cheating. And cheesing as well, I guess. But anyways, let's continue. But now, if we extend the definition to not engaging with the boss's mechanics, it becomes a lot more complicated. Let's take magic. Is killing an enemy at a distance with 2 soul arrows cheesing? Because the enemy didn't do anything, it didn't attack, and so it didn't engage with his mechanics. But it is intended, it is the purpose of magic to be at range, and sometimes not even engage with the mechanics of some enemies, not take the same risk as melee users, and sometimes kill the enemy before it could do anything. And so this isn't cheating. So for now, cheating is not engaging with the boss's mechanics in a way that's unintended. But what about baiting an attack and punishing it over and over? For example, with Ishin, you can just run, wait for Ishin to do the big spear thing, jump, go behind him, do Mortal Blade, and start to run again, until he's dead. I think that, even if you did engage with one attack, this counts as cheating, because outside of that you did nothing, didn't really fight it, you waited for one attack and hit him once, and did this over and over. And just like the first type of cheating I mentioned, it doesn't require any skills or anything from the player really, and it wasn't really intended. And if you say it is intended, then why did the devs bother creating a whole moveset if they just wanted you to interact with one attack? So yeah, but baiting an attack and punishing it over and over counts a bit like cheesing. But there's nothing wrong with punishing the boss as long as you interact with the whole moveset. Alright, so now, is one-shotting bosses, or just being powerful, cheesing? Let's think about this. So, the devs did put all this OP shit in the game, and expected you to use them. Yeah, but did they want you to one-shot the boss, not even giving it a chance to do anything? Probably not. And this is because you are expected to do certain things at certain times. They make bosses with you being at a certain level in mind, having certain gear. They don't expect new players on their first playthrough to go to endgame areas and get OP items. They didn't make Margit or any boss with 50 buffs to oblique curved swords in mind. Like, do you really think the devs wanted you to do this? And so, one-shotting Margit with OP stuff, even though they were put in the game to be used, is cheating. You don't engage with the boss at all by one-shotting it at range. And because you're not intended to not engage with the boss's mechanics, it's unintended. But, does this mean that being over-leveled is cheating? Like, for example, let's say you farmed a little too much and now you're max level before Margit. Is beating Margit in a few seconds cheating? I think that, even if the devs made it possible to level up, they didn't expect you to take it this far, and so it's unintended. And even if you partially engaged with Margit's mechanics, it's really not the experience the devs wanted to give you, and so it kind of is cheesing. But at that point the word cheesing has kind of lost its meaning, so I don't know what it is, but it's definitely something as discernible. And if being overleveled was an accident, then that's unfortunate. But coming back to Elden Ring one-shots, what about for example Moog? He's an endgame boss you can one-shot with Comme de Jeu. At that point, you're supposed to be at a high level and have powerful spells. But, I think it is still cheesing. Let me explain why. So, the Sword of Night and Flames weapon art is similar to Comme de Jeu, and with it you could one-shot bosses or at least do a gigantic amount of damage with barely any setup, and the devs don't want that. They don't want you to one-shot bosses that easily, and their solution was to nerf the damage. I mean, it makes sense. The laser lasts for a few seconds, so just nerfing the damage is the answer. So, what this means is, They don't want people to one-shot their carefully crafted bosses with a laser of death. And now you're gonna tell me, then why is Command Jeu not nerfed? Well, I'm gonna tell you why. It's because they can't. Even if they nerf the damage, it still needs to be an endgame spell, and you can never nerf the damage enough when the spell is literally laser beam until no MP, when you have this much MP and a crystal tail that gives you unlimited MP for 15 seconds, and a ridiculous amount of buffs to make it even more obscenely powerful. They can't nerf this because it's still supposed to be powerful for normal people, and if they still do, they'll never be able to nerf it enough with the nature of the spell and its buffs. You will always be able to one-shot with it, so sometimes you just can't do anything. So yes, I'd say Comet Azurring Mog into non-existence is cheating. The boss is supposed to be fought, not one-shotted, and even if it was put in the game, the devs are not going to nerf things based on if you can one-shot things with a very specific setup. They know the average player isn't going to one-shot things with it, and if they did nerf things based on one-shots, it would just destroy the balance of the game for normal players. But now, what about the other ways of one-shotting? Why don't they nerf that? Well, it's simply because there's no point. Only a minuscule amount of players use them. No player on their first playthrough are going through all the efforts necessary for the setup, and if someone has enough patience for that, then they have enough patience to actually try and defeat the boss fair and square. And the reason why they nerfed the Sword of Night and Flame and not all the other shit is because the Sword of Night and Flame was rolled too accessible, and too many players were getting it early just to effortlessly destroy everything. Compared to, for example, the Marae's Executioner Sword and its one-shot setup, I bet you didn't see anyone get that on their first playthrough to one-shot everything. It's too hard to get, so there's no need to nerf those very specific items and setups. And honestly, is there anything wrong with being able to one-shot things in a game? As long as it's not too accessible and only a thing with late game and specific items, it's fine. You can one-shot things in all the Souls games. You're not supposed to one-shot, but you can with enough dedication. But it's not a problem that gets in the way of the experience of the average blind playthrough, so the devs don't have to do anything about it. Nobody is using Marae's Executioner Sword to cheese bosses on their first playthrough. It's more just for fun accomplishment. The only players who are one-shotting bosses are dedicated people who spend numerous hours searching for ways to one-shot bosses to then upload it to YouTube. But now that we've discussed one-shotting, what about just being overpowered? Not one-shotting bosses, just being stronger than you should be. Rivers of blood, all that shit. Well, of course it's not cheating. As long as you actually fought the boss, it's not cheating. You are intended to find more or less powerful items as a reward for exploring. So as long as you and your weapon are a reasonable level for the boss you're fighting, it's totally fine. You beat the boss, fair and square, be it with a stick or blood katana. You did it. One of the two had an easier time, sure, but it doesn't make the win mean any less. And if you go around treating the people who dare to play differently than you have casuals, that's called gatekeeping. So in conclusion, exploits, cheating, baiting an attack over and over, cheating, being overleveled. If it's on purpose, not cheating but not the most honorable thing, and if it's unintentional, it's unfortunate. Guess you're gonna have to go there sooner on another playthrough. One-shotting, cheating, using powerful items in a reasonable way, completely fair. But anyways, thank you for watching. Your presence until the end is appreciated, and bye I guess.